I've always been interested in doing arts and design and everything else. Went to art college, art university, and then when I finished university, so I travelled around. Then I wanted to get a job in design, and then like now, there's very few, or there was no jobs back there that I could get. I couldn't even get an interview, so sent out millions and millions of CVs and got nowhere. So in the end, I had to decide if I want to be a designer. Then I had no choice but to start my own company. So that was back in 2002. I think I started the company. Really got going in about 2004, full time. I was still working sort of part time for the first couple of years, getting things set up. And then really sort of the first 6 years was basically learning the ropes of running a business. And yeah, so that's why I founded the company. Really just a necessity. When I started out, my design ethos was really, I was trying to make, basically from the background I come from, it's like, see, people never, it was not particularly, people didn't spend that much money on things, so I didn't understand sort of that people would spend quite a lot of money on design and sort of really sort of nice objects and things like that. So I started off with small sort of art prints and things that were, everything was basically under £200 because I couldn't see why anyone would spend more than £200 on anything, you know. So I was very sort of considered, very practical design. But then I joined a group called Hidden Art that was based in Shoreditch, run by Denica Ferguson, who's sadly not with us. But she was amazing, and she sort of brought together all sorts of designers from East London together, and we'd have sort of drinks and parties and mingle, and then they'd put on design shows, and then you'd learn from each other, you know, which of the design shows to go to. And the Department of Trade and Industry at the time would give you grants to have shows, say at the ICFF in New York, or sort of ones in Japan, Maison Objet in Paris, and so on. So you learn all of those kind of things. So we'd be doing all the shows together, and then at the end of the year, the Hidden Art would put on an awards ceremony, and people winning all the awards were people who were designing really amazing pieces of furniture, very conceptual based. But they paid no relation, so like they're almost impossible to manufacture and very, very expensive. And I was like, well, you know, I'm not winning any of these awards because I'm doing very practical things. But obviously, if I just let my sort of conceptual side take over, go purely on original concepts that I had, forget about manufacturing costs, material costs, and so on, just like trying to make the most original and out there pieces of furniture, an eye-catching piece of furniture, then I can start winning these awards. So usually we start with a concept. So for, say, the balloon table, that was simply, I was thinking about what is a table? You know, a table is basically a piece of floor that's slightly higher up. Makes it that little bit easier for putting your cup up and down. So not really much to, like, you know, a coffee table, but how, I was trying to think what was the simplest way to have a piece of glass just hang there, you know, 50 centimeters off the floor, just where you need it, kind of thing. And I was just thinking, and almost like levitate. So I was trying to make it levitate. So I was sort of working on ideas with wires and things like that. And I thought, well, if we put sort of balloons underneath it, we can make it look like it's floating on top of the balloons, and then use the strings as the legs. Also, I think like being sort of a designer, it's a very, very hard thing to do, or being any kind of designer and artist. It's like like people that say it's like lovely and whatever else. And if you don't have to rely on it, it's like if you have to rely on your art and design to pay the rent and whatever else, then I would say it's like the easiest job in the world. But if you have to make your living, pay the rent, pay the bills from it, then it suddenly becomes a lot more difficult. So I think to do it and pursue it, it needs to be the sort of the only thing you can do, or like, you know, the only thing that you really want to do. So for me, it was the only thing I was really sort of qualified to do. So I had sort of very little choice. Everyone thinks, when you think of craft, you think of, say, an old man with an apron and a chisel, and that's what craft is. But I think that's just, obviously, that's a man with a tool trying to put his will onto that piece of that material. So I would say this is kind of a new craft, where you're still taking your will, your idea, but you're putting it into a computer program in which you can make mathematically perfect designs. They can then be laser cuts out to perfection, and then they're put together. What I would love to be doing is sort of more public art sculptures. So obviously, I think because obviously we're focusing on furniture and stuff like that, that's where people haven't really thought of us in that way. But because our pieces are completely conceptual, and I've seen our concepts reproduced as artworks, but not by us. So sometimes, you know, I'm like, well, that's what we should be doing as well. So on top of the furniture, we should be taking this art concept and making it purely into sort of large sculptural pieces. So I'd love to be commissioned to do sort of some huge public art spaces. So now